Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Public Utilities for the City of Santa Rosa to order. We may have a roll call, please.
Yes. Board Member Wright?
Here.
Board Member Grable?
Here.
Board Member Bartholow? Board Member Badenfort?
Here.
Vice Chair Arnone? And Chair Galvin.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Board Member Bartholow and Vice Chair Arnone.
Thank you. Any statements of abstention by board members? Seeing none. We have no study session today. We have the minutes from the May 16th meeting to approve. We'll take public comment on item 5.1. If you wish to make a comment, please go to the podium. Seeing no one rise, the minutes will be approved and entered. We'll now move to our staff briefings. Item 6.1, Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our first staff briefing is our annual water quality report, and Tony Yamas, our water quality manager, will be making the presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairman Galvin, members of the board. My name is Tony Yamas. I'm the water quality manager. Close. Sorry about that. Excuse the mask. Hopefully I can communicate clearly. Today I'm here presenting the 2023 water quality report, which in turn was made available to the public on our website and other outlets on June 4th. Additionally, targeted outreach to customers and the community was rolled out early last week. We have also provided you with a paper copy for reference for this presentation. And first off, I would just like to say that although I am presenting this today, this was a group effort consisting of our water quality team, outreach team, Nicole Dortinsky, and Alex Burns. They worked in gathering the information to put this together and make sure it was distributed properly and on time. So we are required to monitor our system monthly, and at the end of the year, we are required by the Division of Drinking Water to provide a detailed report to our customers. We test the system weekly under the total coliform rule, quarterly on disinfection byproducts. We also test for lead and copper, which is every 3 years. And then because of our production wells on Farmers Lane, we must also comply with the groundwater rule. Along with that, our cross-connection control program ensures the safety of our water supply as well. So the water quality report provides information required by law, but we also use it as an outreach tool to educate our customers about where our water comes from, our water system, water saving tips, and the numerous tests that we conduct to ensure our water quality meets and exceeds all regulatory requirements. Current legislation allows us to use other outlets to advertise and share the water quality report. We no longer must supply a hard copy to every customer as in years past. This year we'll use announcements on Press Democrat, Facebook, emails, e-newsletters, and then we do provide copies to customers that request them. We also supply copies to various public places throughout the city, and our sampling van has copies on hand for any customer that may request one. So prior to 2021, our 10-year average of water supply was roughly at 94% from Sonoma water and 6% from our groundwater wells. And but since then it has continued to be around 93% and 7%. This here is a picture of our water system here in Santa Rosa. Because of the extremes in hydraulic gradients and due to the topography in Santa Rosa, it is broken up into many different pressure zones. So we make sure that we have at minimum one sample station in each zone. Currently we have 144 sample stations throughout the city to ensure that we are getting an accurate representation of the drinking water throughout the system. This is a picture of Sonoma Water's infrastructure. It is complex as well with over 90 miles of pipe. If you look at the upper left-hand corner, shows the 6 caissons near Maribel and Waller. And then down at the lower left-hand corner is the Katati intertie. And they do have standby wells located there as well, which can supplement the system if need be. Here are just a couple of pictures of our dedicated drinking water sample stations. These are used to test the water according to the toilet chloroform rule, as well as our quarterly and annual sampling. We currently have 2 different styles. The one on the right is our standard, and then the one on the left is the pedestal style. We have tried to continue to upgrade as many as we can to the pedestal style, wherever feasible, just to eliminate the sample from possible contamination. This is a picture of our Farmers Lane treatment plant. The facility normally operates from April to November and is currently operating at about 1,600 gallons per minute. This picture shows our green sand filtration system that we use to filter out for iron and manganese. And then we also disinfect and then blend the water into the system. When in operation, we do test for iron and manganese monthly and then perform annual tests as well. Because we receive almost all of our water from Sonoma Water, they do test for over 100 contaminants annually, and then they provide us with this data. This is just one of the this is an example of one of the sheets they provide. It includes the constituent itself, the MCL, the DLR, and the PHG. They provide data from their 6 caissons, as well as their production wells and their reservoirs. And then just to give you a brief understanding of the terms used on this report, PHG is a public health goal, is the level of contaminant in drinking water that does not pose a significant health risk. The DLR is the minimum level at which a contaminant must be reported to the state water board, and it is a level where laboratories are confident about the accuracy of the contaminant being reported. The MCL is, of course, the maximum contaminant level. This is a level allowable in drinking water that is delivered to the customer. The maximum contaminant level, sorry about that. This is the 2023 Water Quality Report sampling results page. We are required to include anything that is over the reporting limit in the report. At the top right, you'll see that the columns are separated between Sonoma water results and the water provided through our production wells. This is the top half of the report, which contains primary drinking water standards, which are those that would have health concerns. The bottom half are the secondary standards, which are aesthetics such as clarity, taste, and odor. And again, the state recommends that we include results from our production wells on this report. One topic that has continued to be one of the top focus areas with many water suppliers regarding drinking water are PFAS. These substances have been studied for many years now, with the EPA just setting an enforceable limits on 6 of these chemicals in April of 2024. On a positive note, Santa Rosa did test for these chemicals under the EPA's rule from 2013 to 2015, with results coming back as non-detect. Under the current EPA's UCMR 5 sampling event, further testing of PFAS was conducted on April 7th of 2024, and the results for all 29 PFAS on the list came back below the minimum level for reporting. And so in closing, I'd like to state that Santa Rosa has remained compliant with both state and federal regulations and will continue to set the standard and provide the highest quality of water to our customers. I believe that concludes my presentation. Hopefully I could answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lamas. We'll open it up for any board member questions or comments. Board member Wright?
I think, did I misunderstand you, or did I hear wrong, or were you right? Does our local wells produce 1,600 gallons per minute? Is that what you said? That's correct. Okay, that's a lot of water. Thank you.
Other board member questions or comments? All right, we'll open it up to public comment on item 6.1. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. See no one rise. Thank you again for your presentation. Good job.
Thank you very much.
We'll move to item 6.2. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Item 6.2 is our Laguna Environmental Laboratory Update 2024. And our laboratory supervisor, Robert Wilson, will be making the presentation.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. My name is Robert Wilson. I'm the laboratory supervisor for the Laguna Environmental Lab. So our lab started in 1968. It was a few years before the Clean Water Act. The city saw the writing on the wall and was proactive at the time to open up the environmental lab to start analyzing wastewater samples from the Laguna treatment plant, and mostly measured the water for process control at the time, and to get the operators' eyes and ears into what was happening at the facility. Regulatory changes prompted the lab to expand, starting in 2000 and opening in 2005, to add a broader scope of analytical testing. This includes metals and thinners, paints, that type of stuff, and back lab. Staffing includes sample receiving, preparation, analysts. We have our own IT support with a programmer, management, and quality control for a total of 14 people. And we processed 10,000 samples for a total of 26,000 analytes in 2023. The big discrepancy there is some of the testing that we do, like metals, you'll have one sample with 4 analytes like copper and lead, cadmium, that comes out of the single sample. That large discrepancy also is that the Advanced Instrumentation Lab that we expanded in 2000 to add, because there's a few number of samples that come in it, but large analyte lists that come from that location. These are our clients. You can see, similar to when the lab opened up, currently LTP operations is the largest slice of our client at 64.6%. Process control still remains to be a large number of the samples that we analyze at the plant, followed by water quality and then environmental compliance, and then a handful of other samples, including engineering services and code enforcement, stormwater is in the other. In terms of customer service, we are uploading data for both the water and wastewater sides. We make sure that the reports are accurate, pass all the quality control before sending them off to the state. We also work with our clients to make sure that they have a clear understanding of what we need. And when you collect a sample, there's not a lot that we can do if the sample is collected improperly. So we try to make sure that we give them the best bottle kit and best advice about what we're looking for when we need the sample, when we get it back at the lab to analyze it. We have provided consulting services for both police and fire when they collect samples, finding them labs to do their analysis. We had a recent case where the police department needed gas cylinders analyzed. It's not something that we do in our lab, so we work to find them a lab that is certified and compliant to provide them with legally defensible data. And then we do support for contaminants of emerging concern, so PFAS, like you heard in the last presentation. Anything that would come that people are just, well, how do we collect this sample? What do we need to do? And then find subcontracting labs to make sure that those analyses can occur. We do need to maintain accreditation. It's through the State Water Resources Control Board and ELAP, that's the Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Program. They accredit all environmental labs in California. That's municipal and private labs all have to be accredited through this body. They adopted a national standard, the NELAC Institute or TNI standard, with laboratories needing to come into compliance by January of this year. NELAC is the National Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Conference, and the new standards really applied to quality assurance programs, and it really reduced, or didn't change how the samples are done at the bench. It added a few quality control samples like blanks at the bench, but it really made changes to our documentation and the evidence that we provide that shows that the samples came into our lab, we processed it using these instruments and these reagents, and then the data came out from a lab. It is based on the international ISO standard, but it is a US national standard. So this is our TNI compliance timeline. I have a red dot to imply where we're about in this timeline. The last time I presented to you was in November of 2023. We were just about ready to submit our application for renewal. I'm proud to state that we started full TNI implementation January 1st of 2024 and received our accreditation from ELAP in March of 2024. We're currently doing proficiency testing. These are double-blind samples, so management nor the staff know what these samples contain, and when we analyze them to make sure that our analysts can actually get the data, reproduce the data that the samples have in them. And then we will be having an internal audit this year to make sure that we are doing what we need to do to comply with the standard. And then essentially the final exam will be 2025 when an external auditor will come into our lab and do a third-party assessment to verify that we are compliant with the new standard. We really took all the way up through the end of 2024 to make sure our quality manual was up to date, updating SOPs, bench sheets, making sure our database was current, and we're really in that maintenance stage. And all the documents that we use in the lab, they're living documents. They have to be utilized by staff and continue to adapt. So as we see changes in our program, we make changes ongoing. A couple special studies that we've been in participation in. We are in 2 national studies on wastewater epidemiology. This really started with COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2, but as you can see, this is even a subset of the full list of viruses that have started being studied. So influenza A and B, RSV, human metapneumovirus, norovirus, rotavirus, mpox, hepatitis A. They've really gone to adding a lot more into this. Public health departments find these extremely valuable, and Sonoma County Public Health is actually looking at starting their own program and working with us in City of Petaluma to submit samples because they want to own the data where these go out to a national level. This is a table or a chart showing our current sampling from January of 2022 to the last samples that we've submitted. I've added some red lines in here to show the year change, and currently, so on the y-axis, it's effective concentration of copies of virus per liter of sample. It doesn't indicate a percentage or number of people that have the virus in your service area, but what it does is helps compare our agency to other agencies, and then it helps compare year to year and seasonality of how viruses move through our community. So in this, with the year lines added, you can see that there is a seasonal spike in the winter where we have an increase in COVID through the winter, but you also see a seasonal spike in summer where there's an increase in COVID in the summer. And you can also tell that 2022 was a harder year with COVID than 2023, more a heavier level of COVID coming into the wastewater treatment plant than in 2023. These are the data for influenza A and influenza B. It more follows the typical, what you would expect of seasonality with cold and flu season. So you see a spike in influenza A during the winter, and then both influenza A and B decreasing as you come out of the cold and flu season. Alongside the wastewater epidemiology, we've also started through our partnerships at the national level looking at illicit drugs in the headworks at Laguna Treatment Plant. The CDC heard from different communities, especially disadvantaged communities, that there was not data to help support that they were having drug issues in their population due to the fact of just challenges in getting people to submit the data or have their relatives be tested for these things. And so while the community knew that there might be a problem with drugs in their municipality, it was just hard to get funding. So they thought that if they could take the same efforts that we were putting towards epidemiology and look at illicit drugs and then compare municipalities to one another, you could then hopefully show, or hopefully not show, that you'd have a drug problem in comparison to other communities and then potentially get funding if that was the issue. We currently they're currently testing our wastewater for fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamine, and xylazine. Xylazine is a horse tranquilizer that's added to fentanyl and heroin, and with pretty bad end user effects. I'm proud to report with xylazine, there's no detectable amount in our community. These are the numbers for fentanyl. So on the y-axis, this is milligrams of fentanyl excreted at the headworks per 1,000 people per day. And then there's neurofentanyl, which is a metabolite. So that proves that the fentanyl that we're receiving at the facility is excreted fentanyl, something that people have consumed and then sent to our facility versus dumped fentanyl. These are the methamphetamine numbers. Methamphetamine is excreted higher as methamphetamine versus the metabolite amphetamine. And when you take averages of methamphetamine, we're getting about 2,400 milligrams of methamphetamine per 1,000 people per day, or about half a kilogram of methamphetamine in our headworks every day. That's around 1.2 pounds, or about the size of a household hammer of methamphetamine. The thing we don't know with these numbers yet is how does Santa Rosa, LTP, our sub-regional area, compare to other areas. I did reach out to the company BioBot that's doing this study. They do plan to open it up and let everyone know what other people's numbers are. That's the ultimate goal, but that's just not available at this time.
Real quick,
Yeah.
the difference between the secretion and the dumped, is the red the dumped and the blue the secrete?
No,
What's
that's a good question. That it's actually proving that it's essentially all secreted, excreted from humans. So that's the metabolite. So that when you take it, you on average are about 45% of the dose that you consume is excreted, and as methamphetamine, and about 5.5% is excreted as amphetamine.
So just remind me what's the red line and what's the
Amphetamine. It's the metabolite of methamphetamine, and the blue line is methamphetamine.
Oh, okay. So what's the difference between those?
When you take a consumed dose of methamphetamine, you excrete about 5% of that. And so this is shown that if I had the numbers up there, the average level for amphetamine is around 5% of the methamphetamine that we're receiving, implying that's a consumed dose, not a dumped dose. And with that, I appreciate the time, and we'll be available for other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We'll open it up for any board member questions or comments. Board Member Grable?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, and hi, how are you? Just really interesting and inspiring to see that nexus of public health and then our lab data. I mean, obviously all of the water quality work is incredibly important, but the nexus here with epidemiology and then controlled substances and this and that is, I'm really inspired by it. It seems like one of those ground truths that's really hard to come by in so many methodological kind of quagmires of, like, are people, when there's surveys, are people being honest about it? Are they not? You know, all these things. And it's like, well, this is pretty raw data,
Yeah.
to say the least. And it's really amazing to have that and have that level of detail and to see how that could be used to make public health policy and decisions based on real ground truth, like not reported statistics, I guess. So thank you so much.
And to see whether public health activities are actually enacting change, right? To see if you do practice, what do you see a decrease in the levels that are coming in?
On that, I know during the pandemic we had some formal partnerships with public health and other public health agencies, both state and local. On the controlled substances side, you mentioned there might be a growth in some formal partnerships. What does that look like? Which agencies would be kind of mining our data or partnering with us?
So I don't know of anyone locally that's currently using that data. Like I said, it just started in January, and they're just looking. The BioBot, the private company that we partnered with, it's a public-private partnership with the CDC. They're just starting to mine that data, and so it's pretty groundbreaking at this point, right? We don't have data from the other communities to find out. Yeah.
Okay, so right now it's a private company working with the CDC to start to
Correct.
just coordinate and consolidate that data across geographies.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when it gets opened up, you'll hopefully see other agencies being able to use that data. Like I said, we only have access to our data at this point.
Any other board member questions or comments? Board member Badenfort?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Just a quick one on the data share. It's fantastic, echoing Member Grable's comments. It's so often we're left with only anecdotal evidence or assumptions. And so I'm curious on this data share. Is there an ETA on when that might be available or possible? And will it include the viral studies and the epidemiological studies and also the data on illicit drugs, or just one or the other?
So currently the data on epidemiology is already shared. And that's actually public facing. The county health actually publishes that data, and then anyone can go to Verily or BioBot's sites and also see that data. So that's already out and has been out for a long time. The data on illicit drugs, when I emailed them, they mentioned it was a couple months out. So hopefully sometime soon.
It's actually sooner than I thought. Thanks
Yeah.
very much.
Other questions or comments? Very good. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We'll now open it up for public comment on item 6.2. Wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. See no one rise. That'll take care of item 6.2. Thanks again. We'll now move to item 6.3. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Item 6.3 is our final staff briefing. It'll be our water and recycled water supply update, and making the presentation will be Claire Nordley, our Senior Water Resources Planner, and Andrew Romero, our Wastewater Reclamation Superintendent.
Thank you, Director Burke. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin and members of the board. I'm going to be providing a water update. So Lake Pillsbury, as you can see, is pretty full. We're about 62% of the storage curve for this time of year. And I did want to just let you know that back in December of 2023, the Division of Water Rights approved Sonoma Water's temporary urgency change petition at that point to change the hydrologic index for determining the Russian River water supply conditions from inflow from Lake Pillsbury to the storage thresholds at Lake Mendocino. And so based on these thresholds, the water supply conditions for the Russian River system are considered normal for this time of year. Lake Mendocino, as you can see, 86% of the FIRO, the Forecast Informed Reservoir Operations water supply curve, so also in very good condition for this time of year. And Lake Sonoma, 97% of minor deviation buffer pool. So all good news on our water supply front. Also just wanted to let you all know and invite you to come and attend the WaterSmart Expo, which is happening this coming Wednesday, June 26th. It's at the Wednesday night market in downtown Santa Rosa from 5 to 8:30. We'll have vendors there, educational opportunities to speak with water use efficiency professionals, and we'd love to see you there. I also wanted to provide an update on our annual water supply and demand assessment. So this assessment is required for suppliers who provide over 3,000 acre-feet of water per year to customers or serve more than 3,000 urban connections, which of course we meet, so we are required to do this assessment every year. The purpose of the annual shortage report is to basically, the state board wants to confirm that we have a reliable supply of water for the coming year. They also want to ensure if we do have a water shortage that we are prepared and we have mitigation actions adopted so that we can decrease our demand in order to meet our supply needs. The first step in this assessment is to estimate our unconstrained water demand for the next coming fiscal year. Basically, unconstrained demand is an estimate of our ordinary demand if the upcoming year has normal rainfall, so no drought restrictions on our water use. Also, to be conservative, we assume that we have population growth of about 0.5% every year, and that our gallons per capita per day rebounds back to our 2020 levels, which is pre-drought and higher than our current GPCD, our gallons per capita per day. Our second step is to assess our water supply for the coming year. So the state requires that we assume that we're going to have a dry year. And in that, Sonoma Water has to provide us their assessment of the coming year. They look at their driest year on record, which is dating back to 1977, as well as the current water supply to conduct hydrologic modeling. This coming fiscal year, they did determine that the supply would be adequate to meet our unconstrained demands. We also look at our own water supply. As Tony mentioned earlier in the presentation, we have 16 years worth of data that show our Farmers Lane wells produce about 7% of demand, even during dry years. And we also have data from our regional recycled water system that shows that we easily meet our demand of our urban recycled water sites, even in dry years. The third step is basically to compare our demand to our supply. So our demand for this coming fiscal year is about 19,000 acre feet. Our supply is about 17,000 acre feet from Sonoma Water, plus our own wells, which provide about 1,300 acre feet per year. So again, our demand equals our supply. And the same point is true for our recycled water system. So this is just for our urban customers only. Our recycled demand is about 140 acre feet, and our supply is about 140 acre feet per year. So we have to submit this report every year to the Department of Water Resources. There's 5 different tables that we need to fill out. The first table is just supplier information, who we are, general number of connections, et cetera. Table number 2 is our water demands, as I just went over. Table 3 is our water supply. What are our supplies and how much do we have of them? Table 4 is about our water shortage assessment, again, making sure that our supply is adequate for our demands. And then table 5, if we did have a shortage projected, we have to describe what kinds of response actions we would take in order to ensure that we have enough supply to meet our demands. Obviously, this coming year we have sufficient supply, and so we did not have to fill out table 5. So that report is due July 1st and has already been submitted. So now I'll turn it over to Andrew Romero.
All right. Good afternoon, Chairman Galvin, members of the board. My name's Andrew Romero, Reclamation Superintendent, and I'll be providing the recycled water update. So this first slide is the recycled water storage curve. This curve is a couple weeks old, so I apologize. However, currently we are at 1.1 billion gallons in storage, which is about 100 million gallons above the average line for this time of year. So there's plenty of water to meet our contract with Calpine and to meet the demand with our urban and ag users. For anyone that hasn't seen this curve, the lower blue line is the historical low year. The gray line is the average of all years since 2004. And the red line is this year's volume. The black line is last year, and the blue line on top is the historical high volume. Next slide, please. The second slide, this is a graph of the treatment plant's production in million gallons per day. The purple line is the historical average production between 1986 and 2022. The red line are the flows from last year, and the black line is this year's flows. You can see on the graph that we have above average flows between January through middle of March. These average flows did trigger 2 discharges this year, but also topped off our storage ponds prior to irrigation season. Next slide, please. This third slide shows our ag allocations for the 2024 irrigation season. We have allocated 1.48 billion gallons. Last year we allocated 1.58 billion gallons, which only 1.02 billion gallons were used. These allotments are guaranteed through September 30th, and we held our first in-person ag meeting since the pandemic back in May 9th of this year. So that concludes the recycled water portion of this presentation. Any questions?
Thank you to both of you for your presentations. Questions or comments from the board? Board Member Grable?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I just had a question about FURO. I know I was up at Lake Mendocino a few weeks ago for the Bureau of Reclamation's announcement for the funding through the bipartisan infrastructure bill for the two-basin solution, the study portion at least, the funding for that. The lake was extremely full and like above the benches, but I had never seen it that full, let alone in June, right? And I know that much of that was related to FURO, and some of that was obviously that it was a good water year for us. But in terms of the percentage that we're seeing, I know that in the first study, I think back in 2019, 2020, it was like a 19 or 20% difference with and without FURO. What's our actual right now in terms of, do we know how much more storage we have, for instance, this year than we would have had without FURO? It's just something I think interesting and good for the public to know.
I don't know the answer to that, but Director Burke, do you know? Has Sonoma Water announced that?
So my understanding with the FURO pool for Lake Sonoma, which has a specific amount, which is 245,000 as their water supply pool, I believe they got an extra 19,000 acre feet with the minor deviation. So it's about almost a half a year's supply of water with Lake Sonoma's deviation. For Mendocino, the deviation is really in the spring, and so it grows over time, so it's a little bit more complicated to categorize, but it basically is putting us at levels that we've never seen before for this time of year. So the last year, at this time in Lake Sonoma, we were at the same level, but that was the highest ever for this time of year, and we're basically in that same space this year. So it's about an extra 19,000 acre feet that we're seeing from FURO, in particular for Lake Sonoma, and Lake Mendocino is really allowing it to fill up, whereas without FURO, they were unable to do that before.
Yeah, it was astounding to see, just everything underwater, the trees underwater, the benches, and remembering just a few years ago when you could walk out to Shotokai Island in the dry, cracked earth, and now it's, as full as I've ever seen it in any season, let alone June. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, just to follow up really quick. So it's above the water supply pool, which is why you're seeing it so much higher, because normally it would be down at that 245,000 acre feet level.
Other board member questions or comments? Board Member Badenford?
Thank you for the report. On the agricultural user allotments, we went through a lot for a long time and creating these. I'm curious just if you can help with any report back or feedback on the May 9th users meeting. One, thank you for continuing to do that. Whether they're, 50 people there or 2 people there, I think it's important that we do that.
Right.
And I'm just curious if there's how it's going and any key concerns as we kind of roll into another year of it.
We had there was about 20 ag users there out of the 70 users that we have in our system. So it was kind of a small meeting. I think it was about half city staff and half ag users total. It seems pretty quiet. They had the ability to irrigate up to 1.5 billion gallons last year. They used 1 billion. So this year it's very similar allocations. So I would probably expect maybe a hair more usage with the hotter summer this year. But it's been pretty quiet. I haven't received a whole lot of complaints about the allocations this year, at least at my level.
Thanks so much.
Let's keep it that way, right?
Yep.
Any other board member questions or comments? All right, we'll open up to public comment on this item. If you wish to make a comment, please go to the podium. Seeing no one, that will conclude item 6.3. Now move to the consent calendar. We have 4 items on the consent calendar.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second?
Motion by Board Member Wright, seconded by Board Member Badenfort to approve the consent calendar. This time we'll open it up for public comment on the consent calendar. If anybody wishes to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one, we'll now take a roll call vote, please.
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Grable?
Aye.
Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Chair Galvin?
Aye.
And that passes with 4 affirmative votes with Board Member Bartholow and Vice Chair Arnone absent.
Great. Thank you very much. Item 8.1, Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Item 8.1 is approval of a First Amendment to Professional Services Agreement with Woodard and Curran for the Storm Drain Master Plan, and Flannery Banks, Assistant Engineer with our Stormwater and Creeks team, will be making the presentation.
Thank you very much, Director Burke. Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. Thank you for having me today. My name is Flannery Banks. I'm the Stormwater and Creeks Assistant Engineer, and I'm happy to bring forward an approval of the First Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement with Woodard and Curran for the Storm Drain Master Plan. First, I want to give you guys a little bit of a background on what the project is. These are the tasks that we're performing and the major tasks that are involved with the efforts. The first effort was to perform CCTV throughout the city and evaluate the condition assessment of the infrastructure. So all parts of our piped and built infrastructure received some sort of assessment score based on condition and criticality. And this was for the over 340 miles of piped infrastructure and over 17,000 structures. The project also included a 1D, 2D model of the piped infrastructure. And for clarity, a 1D, 2D model includes not only modeling the actual pipes and their capacities, but then it also models any escaped flows. So if those pipes can't handle the capacity coming to it, we are also looking at how much flow remains above the surface. It included a variety of tasks related to what the staff needs are to support our community for the NPDES MS4 permit, which is also called our stormwater permit. That's what governs the stormwater throughout the city with the regional board. The project identifies costs of replacing the aging infrastructure. We are also in the process of ranking the needs based on the condition and criticality scores that were assigned to the various systems. And we have a full financial study that we are doing as part of this effort, which will identify the full funding needs to support the actual infrastructure and options for meeting those funding needs. A little bit of information about the state of our infrastructure. These are some of the issues that we're currently facing. In the top right, we do have a number of occurrences of other utilities crossing through the storm drain system. In the bottom left, a lot of the older construction standards, it did not make storm drain systems necessarily watertight, so we do have a lot of risk for root intrusion. So the bottom left is an example of some of that root intrusion we're seeing. We are also seeing damage to the pipe joints because of subsidence throughout the city. And then on the right, you see the impacts of just the aging infrastructure itself. So the pipe on the right is actually missing a bottom section to it. This is a failed corrugated metal pipe. We are also experiencing localized flooding. These are a couple examples of this. These are from the last 2 to 3 years of storm events. And the floodwater in the bottom left resulted in the need to close one lane on Fulton Road for several days. We've also seen some of the flooding impact our community members on their private properties. So the two photos on the right are impacted private properties. One's a front driveway and the bottom one's a backyard. The system does need fixing. Prior to this master plan effort, we haven't had the data and modeling necessary to understand the full scale of the needs, and we're best to focus our efforts and prioritize projects. This project's been underway for nearly a year and a half, so I'd like to give you a brief status update on where those various tasks are right now. The CCTV and condition evaluation is now completed. The modeling is nearing completion. Our consultant is currently performing internal QA/QC before that comes to staff for review. The various NPDES permit needs support is ongoing, as are the identifying the cost of the replacing the aging infrastructure. The ranking of proposed needs for maintenance and replacement is in draft form, undergoing current staff reviews. And then the full financial assessment of the infrastructure needs is also ongoing. This proposed amendment includes compensation for the following tasks: resolving compatibility issues with the city's IT pipe network. This is new software to us, and so there was some learning curves. Additional storm drain cleaning of heavy debris and sedimentation. Developing and confirming the approach to mapping missing codes into condition inspection databases. So when there's missing information in our databases, the consultant has to spend extra time making assumptions to fill in those gaps so that we actually get a performing model. That's also related to addressing the data gaps within the piped network system and supporting coordination with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. The funding for this, the existing funding was $1,574,204. This amendment that we are asking for is in the amount of $121,000, $305. I am sorry. This is from the unforeseen data and CCTV issues, schedule extension, and additional subtask. The full amendment funding source is the Stormwater Enterprise Funds. Therefore, it is recommended by the Water Department that the board, by motion, approve a first amendment to the Professional Services Agreement, or PSA, F002584 with Woodard and Curran of San Francisco, California, for the Storm Drain Master Plan to provide additional consulting services, increasing the contract amount by $100,000, $305. I am so sorry. For a total not to exceed amount of $1,695,509. I can do math. And with that, and thank you for the humor, I'd like to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you very much. Any board member questions or comments? Board member Wright.
Thank you for the presentation. I support this. Couple questions. So Woodward and Kern is subcontracting to Vactor storm pipes. Is that in the contract? Is that what I heard you?
Yes, they had a subconsultant hired for the CCTV efforts, which did include some heavy-duty cleaning.
Okay, well, all right. That explains some of the costs, for sure.
Yeah.
Then also, when we did the CCTV, you know, in the old days, a million years ago, the first time we TV'd those lines, we found that a lot of the no-joint, cured-in-place concrete stormwater pipes were, the inverts were never actually in place or gone or whatever. I didn't notice that problem in your slide. Is that still a problem or not?
Yes, that's still a problem. We just didn't include that that image within these slide decks. So most of the images that you saw today were actually CCTV footage from Roseland annexation. We haven't fully received the CCTV videos from this actual project. So that's example footage that we've had from other occurrences that show the nature of the issues we're facing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other board member questions or comments? All right, I will entertain, Board Member Graybles?
Thank you for the presentation. I was just curious, when we do storm drain master planning, I understand this is mostly about existing infrastructure and the state of the infrastructure and failures and lifespans. Is there also a component where we're looking at new groundwater recharge efforts and different methodologies for, you know, I know in certain communities they've had to really like redesign and rethink a lot of just storm drain planning in general to increase groundwater recharge in areas where they just have none. Tucson had to do it, you know, huge revamp with curb cuts and all kinds of different swales and, you know, recharge ponds and all this stuff. I know we're in a little bit different situation here, but is there any component of that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, there is. So it's actually within that task for the NPDES MS4 support. Within that task, we're coming up with a recommended approach to do regional low-impact development. And we do have the unique opportunity that we are within a utilities department, and a lot of other agencies don't have that benefit. So one of our goals, and you'll be seeing this language in the general plan update, is that we intend to go with a one water solution, is the tagline for those approaches, where we try to maximize all the multi-benefits within these facilities. So the part of our proposition with that is to maximize groundwater recharge with those regional low-impact development projects, as well as see if we can even incorporate levels of flood mitigation.
Is there any requirement for that on the horizon from DWR or any of the kind of regulatory agencies or incentives? I know there was like the big governor's proclamation, I think in 2022, that was like, yeah, we're going to do this. And I was like, what's the funding you know, compliance and enforcement mechanism? That was just interesting to me to see, have they rolled anything out like that since then?
Sure, so I'll speak to the first part of this, and Director Burke might have some to add to that. So right now, one of the biggest regulatory drivers is actually through the MS4 permit requirements of hydromod, which encourage the infiltration. So that's the biggest, one of the biggest carrots right now to get that groundwater recharge. There's also a lot of funding when you come in with multi-benefit projects that have additional benefits like groundwater recharge in addition and above what's might be required for a particular project. So that opens a lot of grant funding. So that's the other carrot. If there's more on the groundwater basin, I'm going to defer to Director Burke.
Sure, thank you. Board Member Grable, really great question. Yes, we would like to see more funding, and there are some opportunities. Currently, we've talked quite a bit with the Bureau of Reclamation. They have some new funding options that are potentially coming out for small scale type projects where we could look to see if we could leverage some of that funding. We are also participating in the Water Bond Coalition through California right now, as well as working through the Association of California Water Agencies. You may recall I'm on the board of Aqua, and we've been having a lot of discussions. Aqua staff has been with the governor's office for the climate resiliency bond. There's a lot of potential water funding in that bond. And so we're looking at those opportunities, and then also just kind of going forward, which is a little different because we have a stormwater enterprise and we have a water enterprise, but we have our Water Future project that we did and we presented to the board last year, and so we're looking where there's those crossovers and opportunities, and we're going to continue to fund implementation of our Water Future projects in our next rate study. So there's a lot of different avenues that we're looking at on how we can find opportunities for multiple benefits and find opportunities for funding not only at the federal level but state, and leverage that funding with the resources we have.
That's good to know. And we, right now, our MS4 permit and any of those issues would be through Region 1, North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, not through DWR.
Yes, from a MS4 perspective, that's with our Region 1. And we've had those discussions with them about how to approach these projects, and we've also looped in this terminology into the general plan update.
Okay. Well, maybe that's better, because some of the stuff that I was worried about where they started, it seems like they started momentum in 2022 with the adaptation conversation, and then in the May revise, the governor cut a lot of that adaptation budget, so I was like, oh no. But I think that that's a separate budget from Region 1 and North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, so hopefully that's a good thing.
And the project does propose a handful of most optimum locations for regional low-impact development, or what we also call off-site offset projects. So there will be a recommendation of 4 specific projects for this, where that could occur. That could be part of it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other board member questions or comments? All right. We'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that the Board of Public Utilities by motion approve a First Amendment to Professional Services Agreement 2F002584 with Woodward and Curran of San Francisco, California for the Storm Drain Master Plan to provide additional consulting services, increasing the contract amount by $121,305 for a total not to exceed amount of $1,695,509.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Wright, seconded by Board Member Grable. At this time, we'll open it up for public comment on item 8.1. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one rise, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Grable?
Aye.
Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Chair Galvin?
Aye.
And that passes with 4 affirmative votes, with Board Member Bartholow and Vice Chair Arnone absent.
Very good. Thank you again for the presentation. Item 9 is public comments on non-agenda matters. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one, we have no referrals. We have no written communications. I don't believe we've had any subcommittee meetings, so no subcommittee report. Any board member reports? All right, we'll move then to the director's report.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. I had a couple things to update the board on. First, you may notice that we are down a board member. Yvonne Sierra regrettably had to resign from the board. She was very grateful for the support she received while she was on the board, and she thanked everyone, but she did resign. We want to thank Board Member Sierra for her participation in the board, and we have reached out through the City Clerk's office to Councilmember Alvarez, who is Board Member Sierra's appointer, and encouraged him to consider appointing a new board member as soon as possible, as we're getting into a very busy part of our later half of the year for this board. So if anyone is out there watching and they are interested in potentially applying for this vacant seat on the Board of Public Utilities, you can go to srcity.org/BPU. And then there's a link on that page for apply for a board or committee online. So again, we want to thank Board Member Sierra for her service, and sorry to see that she had to resign from the board. Second, I wanted to update the board on two exciting things. First is I wanted to let the board know that in addition to today being the 2-year anniversary of the notice to proceed on the UV project, we are very close to having the new effluent channel in use for our new UV system. So the effluent channel is being tested for potential leakage, which requires a large amount of water to be added to the channel. And this is a significant threshold for the project. If it goes smoothly, the effluent channel will be put into use online next week, and it'll allow the temporary bypass system to be operated. And then this will allow us to continue to move with substantial parts of the project. I want to say a big thank you to everyone working on this project, but in particular to Mike Prince, who's managing this project and making sure that this continues to go very smoothly. So it's very exciting news. Second, third, I wanted to let the board know about our CityWorks asset management program. So as the board might recall, in 2018, the City Council approved replacing our current asset management system, which is Hanson, with a new system called CityWorks. And CityWorks offers a comprehensive solution for managing citywide assets and work orders through a GIS interface, enabling data-driven metrics displayed in maps, which enhances communication among internal and external parties, including the City Council and the community. And the platform ensures consistent workflows across departments, and that crews responsible for city infrastructure and maintenance are kept well informed. With CityWorks mobile application, crews can be notified in the field instantly and have new work orders in real time. And in 2021, our Public Works Department and Park and Recs Department began utilizing CityWorks, and we had prioritized those departments over the Water Department, in particular because the Water Department had significantly more assets in the system. And I'm very pleased to let the board know that this Monday we went live after 5 years of work, which has been a huge, huge effort by our asset management team in the Water Department. And so I just want to take a moment to thank the team, and in particular Janine Saragosa, for the work she has done leading this effort. It's been working with many, many people over many, many years, and this is just a really huge accomplishment. We're very excited. It's going to take a little bit of time, and it's going to take some bumps as we switch over to using CityWorks completely, so it'll probably take us a number of months before we have really good data. But as we switch over and catch up, it's really going to provide us with a lot more tools and resources and a lot more information that we can use to run our systems well. So we're looking forward to presenting information on that to the board sometime in the future, but I just wanted to take a moment to recognize how huge this go live was on Monday. And that is my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any board member questions or comments for the director? Thank you. We'll now open up for public comments on item 14. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. See no one move. That'll take care of item 14. That concludes our agenda for today. So we are adjourned. I hope you all have a happy 4th of July, and our next meeting is on July 18th.